Let me start by saying that this is not a story about Amber, though I really wish it were, because she's the one who's sitting alone on this Christmas night, just staring at the fire burning in her fireplace. Poor Amber, it wasn't so long ago that she was actually happy, attending a Christmas party wearing that gorgeous red dress with a man that she absolutely adored, one who would finally break the relationship curse. You see, it wasn't too many years after she graduated that she gave her heart to a man. He wasn't perfect, but she really did care for him. And when I say he wasn't perfect, it's because he was married. But they did end up living together for several months. And though not an ideal boyfriend, they got along great and he really did seem to care about her. And after all, that's all Amber really wanted, was to be loved. But then another problem arose. She found out that her boyfriend's wife was pregnant. The baby soon came, and try as she may, she could not hold on to him for much longer after that. At some point she got the hint, and it wasn't as much of a hint as it was a smack to the eye. So Amber was not only left alone, she was also left a little bruised as well. A year later, though, things would change for the better. She would meet a new man, and this time things felt right. They felt right all the way up to the time that he decided to leave her. But on the bright side, this time she wasn't left with a black eye, she was left with a baby. So now a single mother and still alone. And it's true, you know. The moment you stop looking, love seems to find you. It was through one of her friends that Amber was introduced to Scott. And for that first night, they must have spoke for hours on the phone. And then this was soon followed by that first date, full of laughs, amazing conversation, and plenty of sparks. The phrase, love at first sight, comes to mind. And it wasn't long that they were even talking marriage. He told her how he loved to be on the water and how nice it would be just to get away anytime they wanted. And just like that, Scott bought a new boat. He wasn't just a dreamer, he was a doer. And with his job, he even got to travel the world. And can you believe that he actually called her from Paris, standing next to the Eiffel Tower as the fireworks lit the night sky? Surrounded by all that beauty, he could only think of Amber, wanting to hear her voice as they brought in the new year together. And then there was the night that Scott opened up to her, telling her how he had lost his wife and that this would be the first Christmas without her, his voice cracking in disbelief that he was lucky enough to have found someone who actually allowed him to love again. How her curse of loneliness was so close to being broken until that call came in. That life-changing call to ask if she had been watching TV, asking if her Scott was the same one that was all over the news. Well, one call to the police station would answer that question. Within the hour, 2 officers were knocking at her door. After hearing Amber's story and looking through her photos and gathering some facts, she would single-handedly turn this case on its head. Her Scott was indeed the same one that was all over the news, and she would make the decision to give them everything they needed. Because before Amber, they had nothing. She was about to face the toughest challenge of her life. But, like I said in the beginning, this story is not about Amber. One that might end in a broken heart, maybe with a few tears wasted over some guy. It's not about this sad, lonely person who stares at her fireplace in deep thought. I wish it were, but it's not. This is the story of Lacey, Scott's wife. A beautiful mother-to-be, and one who was so excited for that night's family Christmas party where she'd be receiving early baby presents. A woman who would go missing 2 weeks after Scott said that this would be his first Christmas without her. The girl who, as far as she knew, everything in her marriage was great. Someone who loved her husband so deeply, and who must have been as confused as she was horrified to wake to find his hands tightly gripped around her throat, choking the life from her as well as her unborn child. This is the story of that beautiful soul, who was carelessly thrown in the newly purchased boat specifically bought so she could be dumped in the middle of the bay, whose headless body was washed up to shore one day after her child's. It's the sad tale of a woman who was so loved and adored that so many would attend her candle vigil, including Scott, who would make that call saying he was in Paris. So Amber, while sitting there sad and alone, staring at that smoldering fire, thinking about being the driving force that would lead that precious young girl to losing her life, while simultaneously making you feel like the most hated woman in America, as well as why the love of your life will never walk free again. At least you can rest easy this holiday season, knowing that this is indeed not your story. Merry Christmas, Amber. Scott was found guilty on all charges and was sentenced to death. This was later turned to life without parole.